We just talked about the pros of this Atlanta Falcons head coaching vacancy. Now let's talk about the cons. There's really two that come to my mind immediately. And the first is the control of the organization. We obviously have questions about Rich McKay and Arthur Blank and how much they're meddling in this situation. What exactly is the role of Terry Fontenot in all this and being the general manager? What's that relationship going to be like? Because McKay said it himself and Arthur Blank said it during the press conference that the head coach is reporting to them, not the general manager. So it's kind of this weird power dynamic that we're not quite sure how it's working. So I definitely think that it works negatively when you're trying to attract the top head coaching candidates like we're hoping to land. The other is obviously the quarterback situation. Now, that can be the pro and a con, as we talked about it last time. You get your chance to come in your own guy. But at the same time, we just saw Arthur Smith for 3 years not be able to get the quarterback situation right, and he wasn't given much of a lease. He was fired after year 3. He overachieved in the first 2 years, still got fired for not improving in year 3. So that's definitely a con, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll talk to both of those because those are obviously the two biggest cons of the job in Atlanta. And Rich McKay delusionally said, this is not a normal structure where the GM and the head coach report to a CEO. And yeah, it's not normal because it hasn't generally worked. A traditional structure, owner, GM, head coach, has worked for decades. It continues to work. I guarantee you the Super Bowl winner from this year is going to have a traditional structure and a new head coach who maybe came from an organization, say, I don't know, a Ben Johnson or somebody who came from a traditional structure might feel like this is a bit weird. Why am I answering to you? I need to talk to my GM and then I need to talk to the owner. I don't need to have a middleman between me and the boss. And now Rich McKay is going to have another hat to throw in this discussion, whether it's, let's say I'm talking, we get the hire we want. Now Rich McKay is involved in sharing his opinions, and it just adds more confusion. And I know that a roundtable discussion is good for a lot of things, but sometimes it just complicates things. And I think that that's been a lot of the issue in Atlanta is there's too many hats being thrown in. And the biggest hat, the guy who his opinion is voiced the loudest, has been Rich McKay, and I can't stand it. But to the quarterback point, I do think it depends who you hire, because I do think that one head coach is going to see it as, now this is my team. I can go out and get my guy. I get to pick my partner. On the other hand, it could be a guy that's like, now I'm forced into this. Let's say a Justin Herbert. Everybody wants a Justin Herbert. I don't want to downplay that. But let's say I'm forced into this with Justin Herbert. I don't necessarily want to build an offense around Justin Herbert. Obviously, everybody can build an offense around Justin Herbert. I'm just trying to, give you an example. But in this instant, I do think it's a negative because the Falcons aren't necessarily even in a position to get a quarterback. Yes, they have all their draft picks, but look at a job opening like the Commanders. Washington owns the number 2 overall pick. They're basically just going to be sitting and waiting. And if it's not Caleb Williams, it's Drake May. If it's not Drake May, it's Caleb Williams. That's very attractive for a potential head coach opening. So I do think that the quarterback position is certainly a more of a downside than it is a positive, that, it's a clean, fresh slate. But I think that other, if you want to talk about arbitrary negatives that maybe many head coaches don't necessarily care about, the game day environment. There's not much of a home field advantage in Atlanta. I'll tell you that right now. A head coach definitely doesn't care that much about that. Winning is a cure-all. As soon as the Falcons start winning again, Mercedes-Benz is going to be packed out. But that's another con. I wouldn't necessarily put it even in the conversation as the other two. The two biggest ones are structure of this Falcons franchise and the lack of a quarterback.
And that's why I lean towards the Falcons hiring a more unproven candidate, maybe like a Ben Johnson. Maybe he's a little too high on that list, but it's kind of why Belichick and Jim Harbaugh, who came from these places where they have all this stuff, in place, correct. Why would they want to deal with that? Like maybe an unproven guy would much more rather deal with that. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know you want to say something. We don't have enough time. We do have to go to break. I'll let you lead off the next segment, but I also want to talk about Arthur Blank and his comments on Lamar Jackson and not pursuing him last offseason.